All right, hello once again. This is Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College, and I've been going over the PowerPoint presentations for our textbook, Microsoft Visual C# 2015, an Introduction to Object-Oriented Programming by Joyce Farrell, for our AWD1100 Programming Fundamentals with C# class for the spring 2018 semester. We are up to Chapter 6 of 14, and Chapter 6 is on arrays. Now, most of you who are in this class have already gone through the JavaScript portion of the AWD1100 Web Technologies class, but I'm going to give this lecture as though not everyone who's in here has gone through that. All right? So, our objectives, as you can see right here, because I'm going to keep breaking back and forth from here and then going out and taking a look at stuff, etc. Declare an array and assign values to array elements, access array elements, search an array using a loop, use the binary search, sort, and reverse methods, use multi-dimensional arrays, appreciate array issues in GUI programs. So let's take a look at an array. Let's suppose for a second, okay? I'm going to literally suppose for just a second that let's see, yeah, I have that. Okay, so let's suppose that I have a group of 5 students in my class, all right? And each one of them is going to take a test. So I could come in here and I could say int test 1, and let's say that person got a 63. Int test 2, and we're going to say that person got an 88. Int test 3, and that person got a 97. Int test 4, and that person got a 71, or an int test 5, and that person got 100. Okay, absolutely nothing wrong with that. But if you imagine now that I'm working in a university atmosphere where I have 500 students in my class, now I'm going to have to basically copy this or do the equivalent of copying that and pasting it in 100 times. All right, I could rewrite this like this. I could say int bracket bracket tests equal new int of size 5, and then I could go and fill this up. I could say tests 0 equal 63, tests 1 equal 88, tests 2 equal 97, tests 3 equal 71, and tests, what happened up there? 4 equal 100, and that's totally legit. So what is, you look at it, you go, wait a minute, you use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines of code here, and here you only did it in 5 lines. No, 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah. So you told us that we want less code. Well, I could also take this, all right, and I could rewrite it like this. And I think I'm showing you the right syntax now. I'll change it later if I have to, but I could come in here and say 63, 88, 97, 71, 100. Well, I don't know if you agree, but that's the best way to write it of all. All right. Here I've got 5 different variables. Here I've got one variable with 5 compartments. It's kind of like right now I'm living in an apartment, and it's an 8-unit apartment. So if you would imagine, the male person comes in, okay? Oops. And it is a guy, not trying to sound sexist, but I've seen him before, all right? So he comes in, and he wants to deliver the mail, all right? Well, in the first apartment, let's just say that that's Smith, all right? And in the next apartment, that's Jones. And in the next apartment, that's black. And in the next apartment, let's say that's me. All right. And in the next apartment, we have just keep it simple like that. Okay. So like I said, I'm just trying to keep this fairly simplistic. All right, so in fact, let's get rid of all of these. Okay, so when you look at that, you might not think anything about it one way or the other. But if our address is 123 Main Street, let's just say Wentzville, Missouri 63387. Well, then Smith would be something like 123 Main Street, apartment 1, apartment 2, apartment 3, apartment 4, apartment 5, apartment 6, apartment 7, and apartment 8. All right? So we literally could create something that said like string, APT names for apartment names equal, and we could put it here Smith, Jones, Black, Scott. We can put this over 2 lines. It doesn't hurt anything to do that. So what we've done here is we've created an array of strings. There are 8 strings in there. So if I wanted to find out who lived in apartment 6, and it's not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So let's say that the Browns move out of apartment 6. Now into apartment 6, somebody named Johnson moves in. Now I can do that. And that would be, so this is apartment name 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So in essence, what I've done is I've changed that Brown right there to Johnson. All right, that's what I ended up doing. And that Brown right here, too, became Johnson. All right, so just kind of keep that in mind as we get started. All right. So, an array is a list of data items. In C#, unlike Java, each of these data items, also known as array elements, must be the same data type. So I can have an array of integers, an array of doubles, an array of strings, an array of booleans, but they all have to be the same thing. All right, each element in an array is known as an array element. It's an array is 0 based, so the first element is element 0. All right, here's a way you can declare an array, but here they're declaring it. So here they are declaring it and initializing it in 2 different lines of code. All right. So you could say double sales, or you could, then sales equal new double 20, or we could have just said double bracket bracket sales equal new double 20. You use the new operator most of the time because an array is what's referred to as a C# object. When we get into chapter 7, actually chapters 9 and 10, we'll be talking about object-oriented programming in much more depth and breadth of coverage. All right? All right, so again, an array element is each object or each element in the array. It's referenced using what's called a subscript or an index. You start counting at 0. So in the example that I gave you, I just want to show you how this would be read. This would say APT name sub 0 equals Smith. APT name sub 1 equals Jones. APT name sub 2 equal Black, etc. And the last one would be APT name sub 7 equal Green. Sub is short for subscript. That's normally the way that they're read. All right? Remember to start by 0. If you start at 1, you're going to typically get what's called an off by 1 error, and it's enough to make a program break. All right? I already showed you, but here's another example of assigning an element or a value to an array element. All right? The thing to realize is an array is what's referred to as a data structure. And all a data structure is, it's a bunch of simple data types of the same type put together. All right? And this is the example that I used to give to show this. I don't know if it's good or not, but I'm going to try showing it to you anyway. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to go into Google Images, and I'm going to show you something that was around when I was a kid. Those were Tinker Toys. All right? And there they are. They look like this. They were sticks that you could put together, all right, by putting stuff into these little holes. And literally, it came looking in a box like this, and you could make different stuff with it. So imagine it was the first day of class, all right? And the first day of class, I came in, and I was looking to see if we had a picture of these. It just had all the Tinker Toys laid out. So they weren't pretty, so they weren't made into anything. That's what I was looking for. And no. Okay, that's fine. But imagine it was the first day of class, okay? And again, let's imagine we're in a university atmosphere where we have 500 students. So I walk in and I say, hey, sorry, it's the first day. I'm a little bit behind. We're going to start class in 15 minutes. You are to remain here, and here's something for you to have. So I have the teaching assistants each go and pass out either one of these round things or one of these sticks, and each student gets one. And I walk out. All right, well, the students with the round things might roll them. With the sticks, they might bend them a little bit, etc. But maybe sooner or later, they get the idea. This guy has got a circle, the guy next to him has got a circle, and the one next to them has got a stick. And they say, hey, let me have your stick, and they put it together and they start to build something. All right? Well, that's sort of the way an array works. But with an array, you can have an array of sticks or an array of these round things, but everything has to be of the same data type. All right? But that's kind of what we're doing. So what each one of these things by themselves is typically referred to as an elementary data item. All right, and as you put them together, okay, then they become what's referred to as a data structure. All right, so that literally is what we're talking about here. All right. So in C#, arrays are objects. Arrays are an instance of a special class called system.array, which is nice. We're going to look at that in a bit because it's got a bunch of things that have been pre-written for you. All right. When you create an array and you don't initialize, you've got an array of numbers, each number is automatically initialized to 0. Characters are automatically initialized to the null character, strings to the empty set, which is nothing, and booleans are all initialized to false. You can use an initializer list. That's what I showed you. You can do it any of these ways. I did it what I consider to be the easy way because it involves the least amount of code. The first way is actually not recommended because if you put a wrong number there, so if I put 3 there and then put 5 of them here, I'm going to get an error. If you do want to do it like this, you should do it the second way. In fact, many languages require that you don't have a number in there. All right. If you declare a size, you must list a value for each element. As it says, if you initialize an array with values, you're not required to give it a size. And if you initialize the array yourself, again, you don't even need the word new. All right. The power of arrays, as it says, becomes apparent when you start to use them with loops. Okay? So you saw this before when I came in here and I created this. All right? Let's say that I want a list of everybody who lives in the apartment. Well, one way to do that, and there's other ways, but I'm going to just show you this here. I'm going to say this. For, you've seen this before, int LCV equals 0, LCV less than 8, plus plus LCV. Now I can say here, system.out.println, the family in apartment number, and I have to actually say here LCV plus 1, because the first people don't live in apartment 0, they live in apartment 1, plus is plus APT names LCV. Now, wrap your head around that, please. Because what that is going to actually do is it's going to, there. This is going to say the family in apartment 1 is Smith. The family in apartment 2 is Jones. The family in apartment 3 is Black. The family in apartment 4 is Scott, etc. The thing to realize is this is just a placeholder. So when it's 0, it's pointing to the Smiths. When it's 1, it's the Joneses. When it's 7, it's the Greens, etc. And if you can keep that in mind, there's nothing at all more to it than that. That literally, that's it. So when you start to use arrays with loops, you start to really harness the power of using them. Now, arrays have a length property. So if I create an array like this, the length is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, there are five different, the values could have been the same, but there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 values. The reason I'm telling you that is when I wrote this, I could have changed this to say while it's less than APT names dot length. That would be the same thing as saying, because there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And it doesn't matter if you go from 0 to 7 or from 1 to 8. There are 8 different ones of these in here, and I believe that I did that wrong because that's supposed to be a capital L. Okay? All right. Now, there is something in C#, and they have this in other languages too, that's called a for each statement. All right? And it cycles through the array without using the subscript. Now, you can't change it, but if you look in here, when we just wrote this, okay, notice I had to come in here and I had to create a brand new variable. All right, I'm still going to do that here, but I'm going to say here for each name in apartment names. All right, so that's a for each, and again, I'm getting that right from here. And I'm going to say the family in apartment is, now I can just say here, name. That is typically a little bit easier to read. Now, one thing about this, if you use a for each loop here, you can, I'm not doing it, but you can, inside of the loop here, So in here, you can change the value of the array elements. If you use a for each, you cannot, in here, change the value of the elements. So if you're not going to change the elements, this will actually execute faster. If you are going to change the elements, then you have to use it like this. Right? So again, the for each, only when you want to access every array element, and as I mentioned, it's read only. So you can access all of the array elements, but you cannot assign or change their values. All right. So instead of creating a long series of if statements to search an array, there are other ways that you can do it. You can search it using loops. All right. I've told this story before, and I'm going to mention it to you again. I remember this was many years ago, being at home, and it was summertime, so I was not working at the time, and I was watching The Price is Right. It was back when Bob Barker was the host. And he told the guy, he had one of these guessing games where he had a minute to guess like the price of a refrigerator or something. So, you know, I'm going to try to put this up here and make it very small so we can go see both of these. So let me do this. I'm going to make this very, very narrow. All right, and then I'm going to come over here. All right, and I'm going to go down to here. And there was like a refrigerator, and it was about, I don't know, let's say it was $763. Okay? And he said like $500. And Bob Barker said greater. And he said $1,000. And he said it's less. So he said $800. And he said less. So he said $799. He said less. He said $798. Well, within a minute, you're not going to win a refrigerator like that. But let's imagine, all right, in that same thing that we just looked at, so we've got a refrigerator, and that refrigerator is $763. All right, so rather than guessing this way, we're going to guess like this. I'm just going to move these over. So I say $500, and you say higher, and I say $1,000, and you say lower, and I say $750, and you say higher. Now, in 3 guesses, I know it must be between $751 and $999. So I keep guessing about half of what I've just put in here. So I say here $875, and they say lower. So I say here $800, and they say lower. Now in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guesses, I know that the amount has to be somewhere between $751 and $799. So I keep guessing about in half. So I say here $775, and they say lower. So I say $765, and they say lower. Now I know with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 guesses, I know now in 7 guesses that the amount has to be between $751 and $764. Oops. So you can see how I keep narrowing it. I keep taking what I have and guessing half of it at a time. So I come in here and I say, again, I come in and I go $760. And they say higher. Well, now I know it's between $760 and $764. So I say $762. And they say higher. Now I know it's got to be either $763 or $764. So I just guess one. I say $764. And they say lower. Well, now I know it must be $763. So in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 guesses, I was able to guess that. All right. What I'm showing you is what's referred to as a binary search that we're going to look at in just a minute. All right, here's an example of using a for loop to search an array. This is called the sequential search because the array is examined in sequence. So if I've got a bunch of numbers and they're not in order, this will work fine. This is kind of like if somebody said, well, I want to give you a phone, I want to call you up, and they didn't have my phone number, but they had a phone book. But the names in the phone book weren't in alphabetic order. So they'd start at the beginning, and if they got to the end and they couldn't find any Jeff Scotts, I wasn't in there. My number was unlisted or whatever. The best case scenario would be the first name in there would be my name. So when you use when you do a sequential search like this, on average you search half the array. All right, that's a sequential search. You can also use parallel arrays when you use two arrays and you use the same loop to go through both of them. All right, that's not a big thing one way or the other. Here's an example. We're going through and we're looking for a price or an item or a something. I think it's a price. So what is it? Okay, so if we, these are not in any order. So if I said, is there $1.20 in there? No, 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 no. So it would come back, item not found. In the best case, is there 89 cents? Yes. Now it's only going to find the first one and then it's going to stop. Okay. $8, no, 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 yes. 801 all the way through, no. And I guess they're doing it where they're asking you to enter an item number. Okay? These are actually in order, but the prices with them are not in any kind of order. So 266, yes, it's 01234, 01234, so that should say 579, and it does. There is no 267, so it comes back and says not found. So there's a lot of ways that you can do this. Here what they're saying is if you found it, basically for lack of better words, get out of the loop. All right, there'll be other ways that you can exit a loop also, and we'll talk about those later. All right. If you decide to leave a loop as soon as a match is found, the most efficient strategy is to place the most common items first, so you match them sooner. Like the example I gave you before when I said if you'd imagine that 70% of the people in a four-year institution were freshmen, I should check for freshmen first. All right? Some programmers believe this is a wrong way of doing it, leaving early. You should never leave a for loop early. Instead, use a while loop. Again, with much of it, it's a matter of taste. All right? So they've rewritten this to use a while loop as opposed to a for loop. All right. A range match. It says selecting an array for a range match determines a pair of limiting values. So in other words, let's say that I was doing something where in order for you to get a scholarship, your ACT score must be between, and I don't even know how they score those, but let's say it goes from 1 to 700. So let's say that in order to get the scholarship, your ACT must be greater than or equal to 675 and less than or equal to 700. That would be a range match. Here's another one where they've used quantity ordered. So if you only order 1 to 12, you get no discount. Notice if you go up to 200 or more, you get a 20% discount. All right. And here, they've mapped them up. Notice they use the lower range. All right. Now, the system.array class has a lot of built-in methods. The best way to find this out, and I've mentioned this before, but we haven't looked at it in a lot of depth and breadth of coverage, but to go out to msdn.microsoft.com, which is the Microsoft Developer Network, and if I come in here and I click on the search button and I type in C# array methods, all right, array methods, I always just pick the first one, and there they are. You notice there's quite a bit to look through with here. All right. This section shows the array.binary search, and guess what? I kind of already showed you that when I gave you the example before. Array.sort to sort in array elements, array.reverse to reverse them. If you include the using static system.array at the top of your program, then you can use any of these. And you don't have to say array dot. You can just say binary search or sort or reverse. All right. With the binary search, the items must be in ascending order. And as they say, and we've done this before. That's kind of what we just played with the refrigerator game, was to guess a number between something and something. So again, if I play the guess a number game, you've seen this before, but I want to show it one more time. I'm trying to be complete here. So if we say guess a number, and the number happens to be, let's say 31. All right, and I guess 50, always right in the middle. Less, 25, more. In two guesses, I've eliminated all of the numbers between 1 and 25. They're gone, those 25 numbers. And between 50 and 100. So those 51, I think it is, numbers are gone. So in two guesses, I've eliminated about 3/4 of the possibilities. So I keep cutting it in half. All right, so it was more and it was less. So it's got to be between 25 and 50, say about 37. Okay, no, it's less. So now I know that the number has to be between 26 and 36. So I say right in the middle, 31, which happens to be the number. So when you look, I gave 1, 2, 3, 4 guesses. All right? You cannot use the binary search if your numbers are not in ascending order. All right? If you've got duplicate values and you want to find all of them, binary search just finds the first. If you want a range rather than an exact match, then you can't use binary search. But notice how you do it. X equals array.binary search. All right? And ID numbers is the name of the array. Entry ID is the value that you're looking for. And boom. If it returns a number that's less than 0, it means it wasn't found. Otherwise, you can say that it was found, and you can say where it was found. All right? So there's an example. The sort method arranges items in ascending order. So again, with the example that I showed you before, and it'll work on both a numeric and a non-numeric array. So with the example we looked at before in here, if we came in and we used these numbers and we ran the sort function on them, this would change to, and you all know this, it would be 63, then 71, then 88, then 97, and then 100. If we immediately sorted them and then ran the reverse on it, it would be 100, 97, 88, 71, and 63. There is no reverse sort. You run the sort method and then you run reverse on it. All right? So if I was going to run a binary search, I might want to run sort first on my array to make sure, because again, you can only use it with a sorted array. All right? So I've got an array of names, I sort them, and then I write them out, for example, and you notice that they're in order. All right? With the reverse, I could do the same thing. Now I don't want to do an array.reverse names, because notice these are not in order. All reverse does is it reverses the current order. So I'd probably want to run a sort first and then run a reverse. All right, you can have arrays of multiple dimensions, and it's amazing. I've done this before where I talk to people and they tell me, I just don't get these. I don't understand these arrays that are multiple dimensions. They don't make sense to me. And then they, and I talk to them and I say, you ever work with a spreadsheet? Yeah, I work with Excel all the time. Well, that's just a two-dimensional array. But in Excel, we go letters here, A, etc. And then for our rows, they're numbers. Well, with a two-dimensional array, these are numbers for our columns, but they start with 0. These are numbers for our rows, and they start with 0. So the first location, if that was the top of the array, would be location row 0, column 0. It would be 0, 0. All right. You can have an array of as many dimensions as you want. Most people have a hard time, thinking about anything higher than a three-dimensional array because it's hard to fathom something when you can't realistically see it in your mind. All right, so there's an example of a two-dimensional array. When you initialize it, notice you can leave them both blank. This could all have been on one line, but what this is showing is notice there's a set of curly braces, a set of curly braces, a set of curly braces, then an outside set. So this is 3 rows, and each row has 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 columns. So that's like we put a 3 there for 3 rows and a 4 there for columns. You always go in row column order, because the first number represents the number of rows, the second the number of columns. All right? And you can always multiply the number of rows by the number of columns, and that'll show you the number of total elements that are in the array. So here's an example. They call it Rent Finder. And it looks like the higher up you live, I think, the more expensive the apartments are. All right, so he says, what floor do you want to live on? So that's on the ground floor with no bedrooms, with 1 and with 2 bedrooms, first floor, second floor, third floor, so the highest is the 3rd floor with 2 bedrooms. So if I put a 2 and a 1 in there, what does that mean? Well, 2 and 1, it should be 625, right? No, 676. So let's look. Oh, 0, 1, 2, all right, and 0, 1 should be 676, and it is. Here's a 3-dimensional array. Notice 2 commas. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 elements. But what do I have? I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 rows here. 1, 2, 3. Each row has actually got what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 elements in it. There should be 24 total elements in here. 2, 4, 6, 8, 2, 4, 6, 8, etc. I don't typically, when I can help it, deal with arrays. I mean, to me, it's very hard. So this says 3. 0, 1, 2, 3. All right? And then we want what? The 0, 1, and then the 0th element. That's where that 1050 comes from. You can also, in C# have a jagged array. And a jagged array is a one-dimensional array where each element is another one-dimensional array. They don't have to all be the same size. So notice what we have here. This is the array, and it's made up of arrays. All right? So this one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 elements in it. 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 2. That's called a jagged array. All right? Array issues in GUI programs, as we're almost finished here. If array values change based on user input, the array must be stored outside of any method that reacts to the array's event. Again, arrays are going to be more problematic with GUI programs because you're allowing the user much more control over the program, typically, than you do over a non-GUI program. So, to summarize, again, an array is a list of data items. All data items must have the same type. They're all referenced under the same name. You distinguish one item from another by its subscript or index. They are 0-based, so it's always in the range of 0 through the length of the array minus 1. All arrays are objects of the system.array class. Arrays are most powerful when you use them along with loops. You can use a for, a while, or even a for each, but with a for each, you're not allowed to change the values. We looked at a couple of the built-in array methods, the binary search, which only works when the array is already in ascending order, the sort, which will put them in ascending order, and then the reverse, which reverses whatever the current item's order is. So if I do a sort and then a reverse, I will get the array in reverse order. Finally, we ended up by mentioning that you could have arrays of any dimension. You can also have jagged arrays, where each row has got a different number of columns. And finally, as it says, the major unusual consideration when using an array in a GUI program is that if the array values are based on user input, the array must be stored outside of any method that reacts to the user's event, or you can even have a copy of it that isn't allowed to change. That's it. So we've now gone through the first 6 chapters. Next, we will go into Chapter 7, and Chapter 7 is on using methods. I'll be back with that shortly.